Welcome, all my Washington brethren and sisters. I am your man and Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report Live. Continue training camp coverage here on the LouieTeeNetwork. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Hat to the back, wine intact. It's Sunday. You know how we do it here on the LouieTeeNetwork on Sundays. We coolin', man. And today was a big day at practice. We did not do a video yesterday. Practice was closed off to the media, so I decided to take the day off from the coverage, even though they did have practice yesterday. They were in helmet and shells. Not a lot of big news coming out of practice yesterday, and obviously without the beat reporters being on site because of all the rain that the area had on Friday night. They were in the bubble, so not really much to gather there, even though some things took place. Alex Smith practiced for the first time in 11-on-11 drills. Obviously, helmet and shell, so no contact, but he was out there for 3 plays, and that was a big thing coming out of practice on Saturday. But the biggest thing coming out of practice on Saturday was the fact that Rivera said Sunday's practice was going to be massive. So, you know, the media members were really excited about that, and I was excited to see what would happen. They put a lot of guys in some situations, and I told you guys on Thursday night on the live stream that these next practices, this next week of practice is going to be massive because they've got to cut the rosters down to 53 by Saturday at 4 p.m. I believe it is 4 or 5 o'clock. Usually the league operates at 4 o'clock. So whatever the case may be, these next set of practices over the span of the next 7 days, and that was coming from Thursday night, now we're down to the next 5 days or so, are going to be massive for a lot of guys. And I thought there were some really interesting things that Rivera said today, but I want to go back to what he said yesterday first before we get to what happened today. And then we'll get into practice and things of that nature. Also want to remind you guys, got merch at the LouieTeeNetwork.net on the site. Also, down in the description, you can find the link to the merch on the site, or you can go directly to the manufacturer, the Print Champs, which, like I said, he's doing a fantastic job with all of the merch. So if you haven't had a chance to, check that out. Also, LouieTeeNetwork exclusives, all of the things that we're doing on the channel this year for the upcoming season. As you all know, winners and losers, that's a league that we do. Also have the Soul Survivor pool and the weekly pick'em pool. So check all of that stuff out. It's on the site. Also did a video kind of updating you on that, and we'll do more of that as time progresses. But Rivera yesterday talked about a number of things. I just want to get to some of the critical points that I took notes on. Keith Ishmael has been playing everywhere. Rivera, one of the things he talked about when he first took this job was positional flexibility. You know, he loves guys that can do multiple things. It saves you space on the roster. And the more a guy can do, the more valuable they become. And Keith Ishmael, remember, was drafted as a center, but a guy that also had experience at San Diego State playing guard as well, but he was more of a center than a guard. He's been taking reps at all 3 interior offensive lineman positions, so that's strengthening his grip on a roster spot. The more you can do, the more valuable you become. So Keith Ishmael making a case to make this football team, and Rivera talked about his positional flexibility. He talked about having no fullback, and someone brought up the question about this team not having a fullback, and that's something that Rivera had, and I talked about this about a month and a half ago or so on the live stream about Rivera having a fullback, and it was interesting that they did not have anyone in that role per se. And he said, look, we did have a guy, but he opted to not play on the team this year. And so he's like, we decided at the time, once we saw what the position looked like in terms of the free agent market, we weren't really all that impressed with what was available. So we just decided we're just going to roll with the tight ends and, just have those guys be a little bit of versatile and be able to play multiple positions. And we think we'll be fine there. So he talked about the state of the fullback position and the lack thereof on this particular roster. He also talked about Wes Schweitzer, and he said, and this is going to lead me into another point that I thought was a point of emphasis by Rivera yesterday. He talked about Wes Schweitzer, who I told you guys came back to practice for the first time on Friday. And he talked about Wes Schweitzer missing a ton of time, which he has due to injury. But he said, look, Wes is a veteran. We know what this guy is capable of, which is why we went out and signed him in free agency. So he does have a leg up on some of the other guys that are young that may have been practicing every single day, but we aren't really sure what we're going to get out of those guys. We know what Wes Schweitzer brings to the table as a veteran and a guy who has done this in the league. So we trust Wes, and what he's essentially telling us without saying it is Wes Schweitzer is going to be on this roster. Now, I've looked at 53-man rosters that have been projected by people who don't have Wes Schweitzer on the roster because he's missed so much time in camp. And what Rivera is essentially telling you is, hey, Wes is good not having participated in over a week and a half of camp. He's straight. We know what we're getting out of him. We signed him and brought him here for a reason. And as long as his injury isn't lingering and he's back at camp now, he's going to make this football team, is essentially what Ron told us without actually saying it. And so I want to take it a step further. And I want to talk about vets over the youngins, because him talking about Wes Schweitzer, and then he answered another question later on in his presser from yesterday where he kind of talked about the young guys versus the vets and how when you're making those last bit of decisions towards the roster, in a situation like this year where there were no OTAs, there were no minis, it's harder to go with the young guy over the veteran. Now, he's going to have a bunch of young guys over veterans at positions where the young guys are just better. All right, and he stated that, look, it's never a situation where you're going to just go with a veteran just because he's a veteran. If the guy is better, you're going to go with that guy. However, when you get to the back end of the roster and you start, splitting hairs and you start looking at certain situations, you're more inclined, Rivera said, to go with the guy that has experience, that's done it before. Now, look, got to be able to help on special teams. He made sure he was very clear about that. Got to be able to contribute on special teams. But if all things are equal and you've got a guy that really hasn't done it in the league versus a guy that has, you're more inclined to go with the guy that has. So he's telling you, and this is no secret to you guys. I told you that a Panthers fan told me Ron has always leaned towards the veteran players in this league over the young guys. That's always been his move. If you've played for him or he feels like you're a veteran and you get it, he's usually going to give you the benefit of the doubt over a young guy that hasn't cut his teeth in the league yet. So what I'm telling you is, I'm still, now, where it's really going to come down to is Isaiah Wright, Cam Sims, and Trey Quinn. I said this a while back. Even when Kelvin Harmon was healthy, I felt like it was 3 receivers for 2 spots. Now, the receivers might have changed since then, but at the end of the day, I think it's 2 receivers for 3 spots, or 3 receivers for 2 spots. And I really feel like Isaiah Wright, unless they absolutely love this guy on specials, absolutely love him, I think he's the odd man out. I'm sticking steadfast to that because of what I just referenced. The veteran presence of Trey Quinn, who's been in the league multiple years now, can help you on special teams. And then you look at Cam Sims, who has been one of the most impressive wide receivers in camp and had another strong day today. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I think he has made a name for himself in camp, and I think he has locked up a roster spot. I really feel like Isaiah Wright, although he's done some good things, and I think they see promise in him, he's a young player, and I think they feel like they can sneak him on to the practice squad because of the lack of exposure with no preseason, and feel like they'll be fine. Whereas if they try to release Trey Quinn, they probably will not get him back. And I think they understand that. And so I think that's why I'm leaning towards Trey Quinn making this roster and Isaiah Wright not making this roster, but we will see. But I did want to mention Rivera talking about taking veterans over young guys that haven't proven themselves in this league. I think that's something that you have to take into consideration when you start talking about the back end of this roster. So now we fast forward to today, and this was a really important practice Ron Rivera talked about the importance of this practice yesterday and how they were going to try to start to see some things moving forward. And this practice was pretty much the signaling of them really honing in on specific details of this roster and giving guys an opportunity to play with the ones so that they can really assess how good these guys can play. So this practice was major, and there were a couple of big takeaways, and I want to start with the starting positions of some positions that we had talked about on various videos. We weren't quite sure about who was starting where, what this guy was going to do. And so I want to talk about a couple of positions. Linebacker, Cole Holcomb started at linebacker. So did KPL and Thomas Davis. Those were your three starting backers today. So when you talk about the versatility that Holcomb and Davis bring, that's why they like those guys in the starting lineup, because they are versatile enough to play just about anywhere at the linebacker position. I told you that KPL was going to start at strong side linebacker. They love him. They've been touting him. They've been talking him up, and he's been getting a ton of work, and I figured he was going to be in the starting lineup. So that's pretty much what it looks like at linebacker right now in terms of starting. You've got Davis, you've got Holcomb, you've got KPL. So that's what the group looks like for the starters. And then I think coming off the bench, you're going to have Sean Dion Hamilton. You're going to have John Bostic. And you're going to have, I feel like I'm missing somebody, because I'm not sure about Reuben Foster. They may ultimately go in a different direction. They may actually go with the youngin' Khaleke Hudson out of Michigan as that other linebacker. It's really hard to say because I told you that there hasn't been a lot of improvement from Reuben Foster to this point. They may start him on the PUP list. They may not. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see. That last linebacker spot is pretty intriguing because they do have the option to start Reuben Foster off on the PUP list and bring him back at a later date and time and just allow him to heal up and he'll still be able to practice and things of that nature. But I think there are some interesting things that they may be able to do with the roster, especially with this whole COVID situation and all these roster exempts that they're doing. They may be able to do something with Reuben where he doesn't count against the number of players on the roster and not have him be active, but we'll see. But at the cornerback position, I thought this was really interesting today. You got Jimmy Moreland starting opposite of Ronald Darby at corner. Now, don't read too much into that. Kendall Fuller was not practicing today. They continue to just want to ease him into things. Remember, he got nicked up the other day. Another guy that did not practice today is Antonio Gandy Golden, of course. The Gandy Man, AGG. He got nicked up 3 days ago, hasn't practiced since, so that's another guy that's kind of been monitored very closely. So Kendall Fuller would obviously be in there if you're starting off a game. Right now, coincidentally enough, I think Ronald Darby's starting. Now, Fab Moreau, I think, was going to start, but the injury to Fab Moreau, I think, has kind of derailed that train a bit. And ultimately, Fab Moreau may get healthy, and they may, reinsert him back into the starting lineup. And Rivera has talked up Fab Moreau a ton about how he's progressed well and done some good things, but the injury really slowed the momentum that he was building. And I think Darby has been extremely strong this camp. You talk to anybody, they'll tell you Darby's had one of the better camps of any of the DBs. So really, I'm looking at the cornerback position now, and I'm thinking it's Fuller on one side, you get Darby on the other side, and Jimmy Moreland is a guy that today in practice, he's been playing everywhere, but specifically with the ones, he started out the game out wide across from Darby, and then on the first third down snap, Fab Moreau comes in. Remember, this is his first practice back, really working his way back. He comes in and goes out wide, and Jimmy slides into the nickel. So that was an interesting look there. Again, Fuller can play the nickel. Fuller can play out wide. So once he comes back, that'll change a little bit of that dynamic. Fabian Moreau is a guy that strictly outside at this point. We saw him in the slot. We did not like what we saw. I don't think that's something he's really comfortable doing. So Fab Moreau, to me, is a guy you play out wide. they've got so much, and Rivera's talked about this. I'll believe it when I see it, okay? But Rivera's talked about the amount of depth and the quality of depth he's got in the secondary. He even talked about that today with the safety position, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I just thought that was interesting. Fab Moreau coming in, playing out wide on third down, and Jimmy Moreland, the people's corner, sliding inside to the nickel. That's something to look out for, moving forward. And then on the defensive line, Sweat and Young were your starters. So, look, that's to me what it's going to be week 1, come Philadelphia Eagles, September 13th. Sweat on one side, Chase Young on the other side. I think you're still going to get the Bama wall on the inside when it's all said and done. Maybe Ioannidis starts. I wouldn't have a problem with that whatsoever. But there was a lot made of, oh my God, Ryan Kerrigan starting on one side, Sweat's on the other side. And this was before Young had the hip flexor. So everybody was talking about, whoa, what's going on there? And then, inside it was Jonathan Allen and Ioannidis. Look, at the end of the day, I told you, it really doesn't matter who starts, even though we want Young out there as much as possible. All of these guys are going to play. Kerrigan's going to play. Ryan Anderson's going to play. Tim Settle's going to play. Like, we're going to see these guys rotating in and out of the lineup. Whomever's not getting in there to start the game, they're going to be in there quite a bit. So I wouldn't really put too much stock into that. But today, the decision-making by the quarterbacks, Rivera highlighted that, said they had a really strong day. Dwayne Haskins himself said he had a really good day today. And by all accounts, the quarterback play was at a relatively high level today. So one of those days where you feel like the offense outshined the defense. Dwayne Haskins, by one account, was 9 of 14 on third downs today. And 8 of those completions on third downs resulted in a first down or a touchdown. And one fourth down conversion he had on 4th and goal, he was able to throw a touchdown pass. And on a 3rd and goal, he was able to run for a touchdown. So Dwayne was exceptionally sharp today in camp. And I told you, he's starting to really get into a rhythm, get a really good feel for the players around him. He had a nice touchdown pass to Trey Quinn today. Also had some good completions to Cam Sims. So really strong day by the offense, and another day. And we're starting to stack these good days on top of each other in terms of Dwayne and his mastery of this offense and what they're asking him to do. As I've mentioned, it's only a matter of time before he is announced as the starting quarterback for the upcoming season. Alex Smith, as we talked about, did practice yesterday in 11-on-11 drills, helmets and shells, did not participate today. It was a full contact practice, so he was not participating today. So again, they're bringing him along slowly, but he's taken drastic steps in this process, in this journey back, but he's still a ways away from getting back onto the football field, which I still contend will never happen, but he's come one hell of a long way to get to where he is right now. But when you look at what Rivera had to say about practice today, again, more interesting tidbits from him. Jonathan Allen got injured today. Doesn't seem serious. Sounds like his ankle was rolled up on, maybe a knee injury, but it's not serious. He actually wanted to get back into practice, was begging his way in. The trainers took his helmet, so he couldn't go back into practice. So sounds like Jonathan Allen's going to be just fine, but it wouldn't shock me if he missed a couple of days of practice. And we all know what he's capable of, so no need in rushing him back. It's practice, so I assume that we will not see Jonathan Allen for the next couple of days at practice, and they will allow, and Rivera talked about allowing injuries to heal, which is why we haven't seen Kendall Fuller, which is why they kept Chase Young out of practice as many days as they did, why they kept Wes Schweitzer out of practice as many days as they did, and why Sadiq Charles still hasn't been on the practice field to this point. They want to make sure that these guys are fully healthy. They do not want these injuries lingering and manifesting themselves down the road. So I expect to not see Jonathan Allen practicing probably the next few days. Same thing with Fab Moreau and how they brought him back very slowly to make sure that he was okay. He talked about 7 or 8 roster spots that are unspoken for at this point, unaccounted for, that they're still mulling over some decisions. So, they have pretty much narrowed this thing down to the final 7 or 8 guys. They've got about 45, 46 guys made up in their mind on this roster. And so they've done a really good job, because I wasn't sure if they knew quite what they were looking at yet But they've whittled this thing down, and this is where you would be at this point of the year. You would be going into that final preseason game, and we would be talking about maybe 5 or 6 roster spots that weren't spoken for. And so they've pretty much narrowed it down to the same thing. So they've got it kind of narrowed down where they want to have it. And now, really, this week is going to tell the story. You know, you got to step up. Opportunities are going to be presented to some of these guys on the back end of the roster. They've got to step up and seize the opportunity. And Rivera even talked about guys seizing the opportunity. So it's imperative that some of these guys step up and take advantage of these reps that they're getting, whether it be with the first, second, third team, or as he talked about today. Today was a massive day for special teams. And I can't begin to explain to you how important special teams is going to be on this football team this year in terms of making the roster. So if, you know, I talked about Isaiah Wright earlier. If he's going to make this football team, more likely than not, it's going to be because of what he does on special teams, not because of what he brings to the table offensively. That's an added benefit. They really want to see what you can do on special teams. A guy like Khaleke Hudson, who I just brought up, who's supposed to be a massive special teams player when they drafted him, this is his opportunity to prove not only can he help on defense, but more specifically, what can you do for us on special teams? Rivera talked candidly about how he's not going to leave his special teams coordinator, Matt Kazor, out to dry with not having enough talent. He's had Matt Kazor make a list of all the players and put them in sequential order as to the importance of these guys being on the roster. How good are these guys on special teams? And we'll see how many of those guys we can get for you. So he's not going to leave the special teams naked and bare. If you can help on special teams, you will make this football team on the back end of this roster. So it's going to be important that guys step up on special teams, and Rivera made that abundantly clear. He talked about Sadiq Charles, and he said he was he's been a little bit disappointed. A little bit disappointed in him not being able to practice. You know, he said he was one of the guys that we drafted and we earmarked as a guy that was going to come in and help us right away. And, you know, because of these injuries and him not being able to participate in practice essentially the entire training camp, it's tough to really be able to put him in any kind of a position to help this football team right away. But that being said, it's not like he's getting cut or anything like that. He's going to make the football team. But, you know, you want guys on the roster that if in a pinch, they can help you right away. And Sadiq is in a position right now that he'll make the 53-man roster, but you could easily see him in a position where he's not active the first 3 weeks of the season until he gets himself back into a position where they feel like if need be, if called upon in the second quarter of a ball game or the third quarter of a ball game, he can step right in and help. I don't think he's going to be there. And he talked about the left tackle position and how they are platooning in Jaron Christian and Cornelius Lucas to get those guys assimilated to first team reps. Obviously, Jaron Christian has been taking the bulk of the first team reps, but Cornelius Lucas is another guy that has to take those first team reps because all it takes is one play and he'll be thrusted into the lineup and he'll have to be able to step in and give us something. So, that's another guy that was getting a lot of first team reps today. They've been doing that a lot of recent note, just putting guys into the first team and giving them opportunities to kind of gel and mesh a bit and get accustomed to being thrusted in because you just never know. This league, it happens very quickly. So we'll see what happens there. But he also talked about simulating different things with not having preseason games. The onus has been on the coaching staff to simulate different game situations. And one of those things is coming out of halftime. We've talked about this as a fan base. One of the things that was a pet peeve of ours with Jay Gruden here was the lack of energy coming out of the halftime break from this team. You know, there were a couple of things that really pissed us off with Jay. One was the lack of a fast start to seasons. And another thing was lack of adjustments. I wasn't the big lack of adjustments guy at halftime, but I just hated the lack of energy coming out of the halftime break. I felt like we were always flat coming out of halftime. Rivera spoke to that and said, you know, we kind of simulated that at practice today, gave him a little bit of a break, came back from the break, and he said he thought the team was flat coming out of that break. So that was something he emphasized at the end of practice. He got the whole team together and told them that the energy after that break, simulating halftime, wasn't good enough. We've got to be better. So again, Ron trying to instill all of these different characteristics into this team. It's a process, but it's good to hear that he's doing some of the things that we as fans wanted to see done for quite some time. And that was one of the things that we definitely wanted to see. So them simulating that at practice today, I thought was big. And the fact that they did not respond the way that he wanted them to, and then he chastised them at the end of practice for that, I thought that was a good thing. But he said overall, it was a really good day of practice. They saw a lot of good things. Some young guys stepped up. He said he wants to watch the film to see who were the real standouts of practice, but they got a lot of things accomplished in today's practice. So sounded like it was a massive practice, a lot done, but there are going to be more of these. Tomorrow, they will be out at FedEx Field. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a relaxed practice, not as intense as today was. He said they're going to try to clean up some of the mistakes that were made in today's practice tomorrow. So not as much emphasis on, competition like it was today, tomorrow, but they will be out there getting after it again. And more likely than not, you'll hear from me as well. I do have some super chats that I do want to read before we get out of here. So let's take a look at some of these super chats before we skedaddle. Got a super chat from Juan Gotti talking sports. What's going on, Juan Gotti? Appreciate you, Juan Gotti. Y'all make sure y'all sub up his channel and check out his content if you haven't already been doing so. My man Juan writes, birds falling like flies, Giants looking like trash, LOL. I'm one of those guys, pot calling the kettle black. I'm not looking to point fingers at anybody. I don't like other teams getting injured because that could easily be us. And so I don't wish injury on any team, even in the division. I want everybody to be healthy because I want us to be healthy, and I want everybody at their full strength. Now, as we get into the season, and if you tell me we're playing against the Eagles and Carson Wentz is hurt, I'm not turning that down, but I'm not looking for that. I'm not happy that Andre Dillard went down and now they got a hole at left tackle and they got to figure out what they're going to do because Jason Peters wants more money to go out there and play left tackle. Like, I'm not asking for that to happen because I wouldn't want that to happen to us, but at the same time, it's football. These types of things happen and it's next man up. And I'm looking to take full advantage of it. I told you before any of the injuries or any of this stuff came to light, I told you that I felt like we were going to have a field day against them week 1 anyway. So nothing has changed. I feel confident about, our situation. And I think we're going to be much better in the division. But I think it's still going to be a season where we have to go through and endure some growing pains. But we'll see. It's hard to say that the Giants are looking like trash because no preseason games have been played. I mean, all they can go off of is practice, just like we're going off of practice. So we don't know what any of these teams look like. It'll be interesting to see what happens once the season gets kicked off. But all I'm worried about is us. I'm not worried about anybody else in the division or anybody else around the league. I'm just worried about us. Can we stay relatively healthy? We've done a pretty good job of that, knock on wood, to this point. I'd like to keep it that way. I'd really like to keep it that way, but we'll see what happens as we near the regular season. But thank you for the super chat, Juan Gotti, talking sports. Got another super chat, this one from 99 Problems, Chase Ain't One. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, 99 Problems, Chase Ain't One, who writes, I respect your grind, Louie. You've been bringing that heat every day from what I've seen, bro. So I got 5 on it. Keep dropping that info. I got 5 on it. I appreciate you, bro. I really do. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep you guys as informed as possible, keep you abreast of the latest news with this Washington football team as I can. And so as I get it, I give it. And I appreciate y'all blessing the program as well. Appreciate you a lot. Thank you so much. If you haven't already done so, and this is your first time here, welcome. Make sure you sub up the channel. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. You'll see these impromptu live streams from time to time. There'll be a more structured environment once the season gets kicked off starting next week. You'll have a much more structured schedule with the programming here. But, for the time being, these things come at you every which way, anytime, outside of Thursday where you're getting a live stream at 8:30 p. These things could come at you at any time, so make sure you've got that notification bell turned on so you don't miss a thing. And also, hit that like button while you're there as well. Got another super chat. Let's see who this one is from. As always, my man BD, blessing the program, Barrett Downing. Thank you so much for the super chat. As always, my man Barrett writes, what up, Lou? I think the more versatile you are, you really got a shot. I'm going to get some of your merch. Respect. I appreciate that. Speaking of merch, thank you for that plug. Got merch available. I think I've done this already today, but I'm going to do it again. Got merch available on the site. It's down in the description. If you want to just click the link, it'll take you straight to the merch, and you can shop it there. You can either do it on my site, LouieTeeNetwork.net. That's a revamped website, so brand new. Looks good. It's good on mobile or on desktop, so check that out. Also, you can just go straight to the Print Champs. That link is down in the description below, and you can shop the merch there as well. Appreciate you in advance. And also, don't forget Louie T Network exclusives. If you're an NFL fan like myself, and you just got to have something on the games, come. I'm one-stop shop right here. Come and check me out, LouieTeeNetwork.net. Click that exclusives tab and have at it. So, in any event, absolutely versatility is the name of the game, especially with Rivera and company. They've made it abundantly clear. The more versatile you are as a defender, the more likely it is you've got a shot to make this football team. And we've seen that already with some guys getting, played up and talked up about their versatility. I talked about Keith Ishmael already and how I think he's going to make the football team. I thought he was a bubble guy initially. Anytime you're a late round draft pick, there are no guarantees. And they already had signed Wes Schweitzer to a 3-year deal. So I felt like Wes had the inside track there. Didn't know how many guards they were going to try to keep on the roster. But when you start talking about a guy that can play all 3 of the interior offensive line positions like a Keith Ishmael can, you really heighten the opportunity that you have to make this football team. You talk about Antonio Gibson, the reason he was drafted as high as he was by this football team. There are people out there that had 5th, 6th, 7th round grades on this guy, but because of his versatility, Scott Turner looked at him and said, this is a guy that I can do a lot of things with, and they pulled the trigger on him in the 3rd round. So again, when you start talking about guys that have versatility, the more you can do, the more likely it is you'll be here and on this football team come September. And there are a number of guys that have kind of separated themselves because of their versatility and all of the things that they bring to the table. And that's why they're going to be here. The more you can do, the more likely it is you're going to make this football team if you're a quality football player. I couldn't agree with you more. Barrett Downing, thank you for the super chat. Got another super chat. This one is from Hype Do. Thank you for the super chat, Hype Do. Greatly appreciate you, Hype Do. Hype Do writes, how meaningful would it be for the first game win over the Eagles for this team? Would it be a good sign of things to come or just that the Eagles played bad injuries? It's hard to say right now because the Eagles could come out and play a fantastic game and we could just best them. We could just outclass them. Even though they played a good game, we could just play better. And you would hope that that's the case and that you don't look back on the game and look, because honestly, I don't give a shit how we get it. We can win the game 9-6. It could be a sloppy, turnover-filled, penalty, miserable, nasty, ugly game. But if we win 9-6, I'll take it. But you would prefer the game to be 27-24. Both teams played well, but we just played better and we came out with the win. Or, really, honestly, you would like it to be 27-10, a dominant performance by the defense. The offense took advantage of opportunities. They got in the red zone. They scored touchdowns, and we dominated the Eagles. That's what you would really prefer. But let's be honest. The Eagles are a good football team. Highly unlikely that we come out of the gate and dominate them and smoke them week 1. I just don't see that happening. So, I think if we beat the Eagles, it may have something to do. If Chase Young goes off for 2.5 sacks and as a collective unit and group, we end up with 6 sacks on the day, maybe you could chalk it up to a faulty offensive line and some things that they had going on up front that really put them behind the 8 ball. But no excuses here. At the end of the day, next man up, you get it done, you find a way. That's what this league is all about. It's a war of attrition. We know that. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So they got to find a way, as teams do all the time in this league. And I anticipate that if we are able to win the football game, it'll be less of an indictment on the Eagles and more about just how bad we wanted the football game. Because how many times do we see teams come out of the gates in a season, start out 2-0, play really well, and then they fall off the wagon, and at season's end, they're 5-11. It happens all the time. Just because you win in week 1 doesn't mean you're going to be a good football team. We see this every single year. However, I told you that I think we're going to win week 1, and I told you I think we're a 6-10 football team. That's not that. doesn't change how I feel about this team. If we beat the Eagles week 1 and we look impressive doing so, I'm going to look at that and say, wow, that was really impressive. Do it again. Go on the road against Arizona and do it again. And if they somehow manage to do that again, then I'm going to take a step back and say, okay, maybe I might have been wrong about this team. Maybe we're a little bit further ahead of schedule than I thought. Then I'm going to say, all right, do it to the Ravens. Do it to the Rams. Like, do it again. And if they're able to either be in ball games or lose or win ball games, that's when you might change my mind. But, beating the Eagles week 1 isn't going to change my mind because I've already said this is a 6-10 ball club, and I already had the Eagles win in week 1 built into that 6-10 record. So I think if we win week 1, it depends on how it looks, whether the Eagles, were a guilty party in helping us get the win, or if they actually played a good game and we just played better, So it's hard to say right now, but I can tell you this much. If the Eagles are able to get us in week 1, I'll be really disappointed because I really think that everything suggests that we're supposed to get them. We're catching them at a time where they're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do on the left side of their line with the injury. We're catching them early. Carson Wentz just got injured. He got injured his lower back. He'll be fine, but he'll be ready more likely than not for week 1. But, we're catching them at the right time. We need to take care of business, and I think we will. So I'd actually be disappointed if we didn't win that game. And there won't be many times this season where I'll be disappointed if we don't win, because I think our schedule is pretty tough, and we're not good enough to circle anybody on the calendar and say we're supposed to beat them. Those days are over. We got to get back to a point where we can look at a team and say, hey, we're supposed to beat them. We're not there. Everyone's looking at their schedule and saying we better beat the Redskins or the Washington football team. So you know how I feel about that. I've done this before. I've done this song and dance. I thank you for the super chat. As always, greatly appreciate you. Hype. Got another super chat. This one from Boulevard Sparks. Thank you for the super chat, Boulevard Sparks. Greatly appreciate you. Boulevard Sparks writes, am I tripping? Because I think our defense is top 5. Am I tripping when I say barring O-line trouble, sky's the limit for our offense? You're not tripping on the defensive side of the football. Now, you've skipped steps. I've talked about this. I don't foresee us jumping into the top 5. Now, if you told me at season's end the Washington football team had the 9th overall rated defense in the league, I wouldn't be shocked by that. Not at all. If you told me we were the 7th rated defense in football this year, I wouldn't bat an eye. If you told me we were number 5, then I would say, whoa. Not expecting that. Top 5 is really hard to do because what that says is that for 16 games, you were consistently good. Top 5 says. And not consistently good. You were elite for 16 weeks, essentially. All right? I just don't think we're going to be there quite yet. Top 10 is very doable. I'm thinking more along the lines of 12 to 15 is where this team, 12 to 17. If we're in that range, to me, it's a tremendous success. Coming from where we came from. That is a tremendous jump defensively. Now, Del Rio has a track record of taking teams defensively and turning them into really good squads. We've got the talent. There's still question marks in the secondary. But front seven wise, I think we've got what it takes. So I'm intrigued by this defense, and I don't think you're tripping. This could be a top 10 defense, I believe. I don't think it will be ultimately when it's all said and done. I think we're going to be somewhere in that top 12 or so. But, if we finish 7 or 9, I wouldn't be shocked. 5? Whoa, hell of a year by this defense. But offensively now, you might be tripping. I think there are some wrinkles that we have to iron out offensively. I think there are some things that we do have to clean up as a team offensively. Some issues along the offensive line that we have to make sure we're squared away at. I'm not quite sure about the depth of this offensive line yet. You get Sadiq Charles back, and maybe I'm a little bit more positive about the depth of this football team up front. But bottom line is we've got some talent. We've got some weapons. I think, and I've said this already, I'm really really bullish on Steven Sims and Terry McLaurin. I really like Antonio Gibson. I think he's going to be a stud, but we got to see it first. I'm not going to anoint him quite yet. I'm not treating him like I'm treating Chase Young, where out of the box, I'm treating Chase Young like royalty, and I expect him to come in and get on the throne. I'm not doing that with Antonio Gibson because he didn't play at Ohio State, and he didn't dominate for multiple years. He had one big season at Memphis, and he played in the AAC. I need to see it here, but I'm confident that that guy's going to be a problem for many NFL defenses for years to come. So I like the weaponry we have. I think you add in a Dontrell Inman, you sprinkle in a little bit of Cam Sims and some of the other guys that we have. Maybe, we're underrating, or I can't speak for you. Maybe I'm underrating Logan Thomas at the tight end position and Marcus Ball and some of those guys. I still need to see it at the tight end position. I'm not sold at all whatsoever, but I think we've got talent. But it's got to manifest itself. And that I'm not quite sure about. So until we get to a point where we can be confident on this offense, I don't know if I can go, that this offense is going to be really, really good. I think it's going to start off a little slow. And I think as the season progresses, this offense is going to find its stride. And by the season's end, I think we're going to feel really good about this offense. And you're going to have Kelvin Harmon coming back. We're going to feel really good about this offense as the season progresses. So I think that's kind of my take on the offense at this point. But no, you're not tripping defensively. Maybe on offense, but you're not tripping on the defense, I don't think. You're not that far off. Thank you for the Super Chat, Boulevard Sparks. Got another Super Chat, this one from Jordan Like the GOAT. Says, thoughts on the receiver position? So, the receiver position, is one near and dear to my heart. I think we're keeping 5. Right now, there's a lot of chatter that we're keeping 6. I'm not as bullish on keeping 6 receivers as I am keeping 5 running backs. I know a lot of you think we're only keeping 4. I think we're keeping 5 running backs. But that's nor here nor there. The receiver position, if we're keeping 5, 4 of those spots are already spoken for. Like we already know 4 guys are going to be here. Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims, or is it 3? Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims, Dontrell Inman, those guys are locks. Those guys are going to be here. I think after those 3, I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody because I've done a pretty poor job of making sure I get everybody on board. So let's look at the group of receivers first, and then we'll start talking about them. So you got Terry McLaurin, you got Steven Sims, you got Dontrell Inman, you got Cam Sims, you got Trey Quinn, you got Isaiah Wright. Those are really the 6 guys that I think have a realistic shot at making this football team. Some of the other guys have had solid camps. I hate leaving out Kidsey, but I just don't think Kidsey's going to make the football team. I'm sorry. I just don't see it happening. But, they've talked about Jordan Vesey, cool, but he's not making the football team. So I think it's those 6 guys that are, and again, if we're keeping 6, then those are your 6. It's not really a conversation to be had. I just don't think we're keeping 6. I think we're keeping 5. So if you're keeping 5 guys, obviously the first 3 are locks and McLaurin, Sims, Steven Sims, that is, and Dontrell Inman. Then I think Cam Sims is making his football team. That's when I said 4, I think that was the guy that I felt like was a lock in Cam Sims. He's becoming a lock quickly. Had another strong day today at practice. Had a touchdown grab, had a great catch down the sidelines from Kyle Allen, had a number of catches from Dwayne Haskins today. He continues to strengthen his case to make this football team. I just don't think there's any way possible Cam Sims isn't making this football team. And he's a core special teamer as well. So I just think Cam Sims going to make this football team. So that's 4. Now it comes down to the veteran experience, and I talked about how Rivera respects veterans, of Trey Quinn, who also is a core special teamer. Has experience in the slot. We don't have, and I want you to understand this. Terry's been playing all over the place. Slot, out wide, but Terry's more likely than not, by trade, a out wide receiver. He can play everywhere, but he's out wide. He's a guy that's going to be your X more likely than not. When you look at the slot, and you're looking for another guy like Steven Sims, we don't have another guy on the roster like a Steven Sims other than Trey Quinn. And I talk about the value in having another guy that mirrors a guy that you're going to have a lot of things that you want to do for him. To me, Trey Quinn is similar. He's not Steven Sims in terms of speed and quickness, but he's the closest you're going to get in terms of a jitterbug that can work in the slot. Because when you start looking, it's funny. We've gone all these years without having a lot of size at receiver. To now, we've got a bunch of size. Cam Sims is a big guy. Dontrell Inman is a big guy. Isaiah Wright, if he makes this football team, is a big guy. All right. You look at all those receivers; they're bigger guys. So there isn't that jitterbug, that other guy that can actually play in the slot if you don't have a Trey Quinn on the roster. So I think Trey Quinn is the guy that makes the football team as your fifth and final receiver. And I think I keep harping on this, even though I think they love Isaiah Wright as a special teams guy. Trey Quinn is also a core special teamer and a guy that gets it done on special teams. Let's not forget that. He's also a guy that can serve as a punt returner. He's also a guy that can do a lot of different things, including something that Isaiah Wright probably can't do, and that's play in the slot. So, or at least in the slot with fluidity and experience. That's something that Isaiah Wright doesn't have, his experience, which Trey Quinn does. So I think if it comes down to 5 receivers in a Trey Quinn, Isaiah Wright discussion, I think they go with Trey Quinn because they can sneak Isaiah Wright onto the practice squad. He doesn't have to go anywhere. And if they really like him, don't forget Trey Quinn. I think this is his last year of his rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Trey Quinn, if they don't want him back next year, or they feel like they got a roster spot available next year, Isaiah Wright can then be bumped up. Or if they want to keep Isaiah Wright, one more year of seasoning, and then they think he's ready in year 2, boom, he's up. And he's ready to go next year. But if you let Trey Quinn go, he's gone. You're not getting him back. Someone will claim him on waivers. Trust me. Someone will claim Trey Quinn out there, and he won't be back. And so I think they would rather expose a guy like Isaiah Wright to waiver claims where they think they can pass him through waivers and put him onto the P squad versus a Trey Quinn where you're just going to outright lose him. So to me, there are some really intriguing situations at receiver, but I think 4 of the spots are spoken for. Both Sims, McLaurin, and Dontrell Inman are all on the football team to me at this point. I think it's now really between, and I could be wrong. Isaiah Wright could already be on this roster. I think that the thinking, if I'm a coach on the team, and again, I'm not there every day and I'm not watching them in practice, but to me, Trey Quinn had a touchdown catch today from Dwayne Haskins. Like, he's running with the 1s. He's getting work with the 2s. And he's getting enough work that I feel comfortable that they really know what they're getting out of him. Rivera leans towards veterans more so than the youngins. I think with this being an offseason that's so unique where you can sneak a guy onto the practice squad that maybe if he was exposed in the preseason, you wouldn't be able to. I think Trey Quinn is a guy that makes this football team. So that's kind of how I feel about the wide receiver position to this point. It's a lot of time left in camp, a lot of time for guys to make an impression and potentially win out some spots. But to me, that's what it looks like at the receiver position. But, I'm fascinated by the receiver position, as I always tell you guys. So keep looking out for that. But thank you for the super chat, Jordan Like the GOAT. Got another super chat. Thank you for the super chat, JP Lavecchio. I really appreciate that. Got another one from King of the North. Greatly appreciate you, King of the North. As always, King of the North writes, one position on O, we better have a starter than Dallas. He says, one position on O, we have better starter than Dallas. One position on offense that we have better than the Cowboys. I would say right now, our defensive line is better than theirs, I think. Now, they lost Gerald McCoy to injury. That's a big loss. They did sign Dontari Poe, and they still got Tank Lawrence, and they got Everson Griffin, so that bolsters their defensive line. But, and they got Aldon Smith. We don't know what he is. I'd like to think that Aldon Smith is washed, but I've been hearing really big things about him out of training camp in Dallas, and that they really like what they're getting out of him, and they think he's going to be a stud for them. We'll see. But I'll take our defensive line over theirs. I can tell you this much. If Chase Young is as advertised, which I think he is, you can't convince me otherwise, they don't have a guy the caliber of a Chase Young. Tank Lawrence isn't Chase Young, okay? DeMarcus Lawrence is good. He's not elite. Chase Young has a chance to be 17 and a half, 19 and a half, 20 sack, elite good. That's not Tank Lawrence, okay? And he's really good. Don't get it twisted. But if I'll take R2, Montez Sweat, and Chase Young over any 2 Dallas can put up against those guys. Okay? So I feel really confident about our defensive line. I love Ioannidis. I think Ioannidis is better than any defensive tackle that they have, and has performed at a higher level than any of their defensive tackles in terms of sacks and things of that nature. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, those are elite talents. They don't have that on the interior of their defensive line. They don't have a first-round pick interior defensive tackle. I just think our defensive line is better than theirs. We don't have many positions where we're better than them. They're really talented everywhere. Wide receiver, running back. I like their tight ends. Obviously, Dak is a really good quarterback in this league. He's established himself. Going to get a massive deal eventually. We love their linebackers. I think their linebackers are athletic. They're gifted. So they're studs there. I think we might have the upper hand in the secondary, too. I think their secondary is a little lackluster, okay? Leaves a lot to be desired, but then again, so does ours. So I think that's a wash right now, but I take our defensive line over theirs. Thank you for the Super Chat, King of the North. Really appreciate you. Got another Super Chat, this one from JP Lavecchio. Thank you for the Super Chat and doubling up. Double up. Even if the first one was a mistake, I really appreciate you, JP Lavecchio. Thank you for the Super Chat. He writes, Khaleke Hudson played a lot of nickel corner and was also a great blitzer. Do you think he will make the team as a dime linebacker? Thanks. I think he's got a really good chance of making this football team. One, because of his standout ability on special teams. I think that supersedes everything else. Love him as a blitzer. I talked about him as a blitzer and a guy around the line of scrimmage that mugs gaps and comes off the edge as a lightning fast defender, knifes into the backfield. Love him as a blitzer. However, I think where his best value is right now is on special teams. They're not necessarily looking for Khaleke Hudson to have a massive impact on the defensive side of football as of yet. I think where they're really looking for Khaleke Hudson to show up is on special teams. Remember, Jarrett Norris was the guy that would always make the football team in Carolina because they needed a standout special teams guy. They're looking for someone to fill that void, and I think that guy is Khaleke Hudson. So if Hudson's going to make this football team, it's going to be on special teams first. And then I think you start looking at his capabilities as a blitzer and a guy that can move around in space. He's a tremendous athlete and a guy that's comfortable out in space, dropping into coverage and things of that nature. So that's when you start getting into Khaleke Hudson, the athlete on defense, after you come and look at Khaleke Hudson, the special teams demon. So when you talk about Khaleke Hudson and the value that he provides for this roster, it starts with special teams, and then you start talking about all the things that he can do potentially as a blitzing linebacker in sub packages and as a dime backer. I think they won't trust him in dime responsibilities right off the gate. I think right now a guy like KPL, they're a lot more comfortable with him being in the game in a dime situation where he may be the only backer on the field. You're talking about 5 defensive backs, 4 or 6 defensive backs, 4 down linemen and 1 backer on the field. I think KPL is that guy that they're most comfortable with in that situation. Maybe even a Cole Holcomb, but I think KPL is the guy that has gotten the most work in a situation where they've got multiple corners on the field on both sides and still 2 safeties, and you're still putting 4 defensive linemen on the field. So, like I said, I don't really necessarily think his defense is what's going to get him on the football team initially, even though I think they're looking at him and saying, hey, in a pinch, we feel comfortable with Khaleke having to go out there. I think they're really more so looking at Khaleke Hudson for his special teams ability. Thank you for the Super Chat, JP Lavecchio. I got another Super Chat. This is from Redskin 007. Thank you for the Super Chat, Redskin 007. Greatly appreciate you, Redskins 007. Who writes, 2 weeks from live football, excited to see this mostly young team play. Haskins looking prime for taking a big step forward this year. HTTR, keep up the good work. Cheers. I agree with everything you said, every single sentiment in that comment. Spot on. 2 weeks from now, we'll be watching the Washington football team host the Philadelphia Eagles in a meaningful football game. And we will be kicking off the 2020 season. And from that point forward until something happens that derails the season, and we'll knock on wood that doesn't happen. But if not, we'll have 17 straight weeks of football, 16 of which our team will be involved in. I can't wait. Bart Scott, can't wait. I'm excited. I think Haskins is ready to take that massive leap. We saw it at the end of last year. I think he's going to continue to build off of that. I'm stoked for this football team. I'm stoked to see the boys back on the field. I get amped during the preseason when I get to see the fellas back on the field for the first time. So, I'm going to be extremely amped because we got no preseason action. So I'm like a caged animal waiting to burst out. When they open that gate on September 13th, I'm going to be screaming, ah! I'm ready to go. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I think a lot of you feel the same way. I cannot wait to see this football team. And I told you, it's fun watching the young fellas grow, man. It's fun watching the youngins grow up before your very eyes. And so we're going to get to see that firsthand. For so many years, we tried to cut corners and cheat. We tried to go out and get free agents, and we tried to expedite the process, and we didn't want to develop our own. We didn't do a good job of drafting guys and developing them and keeping them here past their rookie deal. We're actually now doing it the right way, and we're going to get to watch these guys develop right before our very eyes. It's going to be a ton of fun. I cannot wait. And so it sounds like a lot of you feel the same exact way. Thank you for the super chat. Redskin 007. Got another super chat. This one is from Jordan Like the GOAT. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Jordan Like the GOAT. Greatly appreciate you. Jordan Like the GOAT writes, do you think the O-line talent in our division will humble Chase Young? No, I think he's elite. This is the thing about the O-line talent in our division. It's elite. There's no doubt about it. And even a 37, I think Jason Peters is now, 36, 37, 38 maybe, year-old Jason Peters is still elite. Still better than, half of the left tackles, if not 2/3 of the left tackles in this league. But that being said, he's getting up there in age. Tyron Smith, maybe he was dealing with some injuries last year. He didn't look like the same. Look, Montez Sweat baptized him in week 17 last year. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but he might have been dealing with some injuries. But I don't care. I think Montez Sweat and the Giants drafted themselves a stud and Andrew Thomas. It should be fun, But guess what? There are 2 tackles on each team, a left and a right. And if we can't get it at the left side, we can try it on the right side. And I think the Giants' right side is very vulnerable. I think the Eagles' right side, not so much with Lane Johnson. He's pretty damn solid himself. But the Cowboys' right side, I think that's vulnerable. I think you can take advantage of their right side over there. I just like where we are from a pass rushing standpoint. I think Chase Young, he's elite. And when you're elite, you're gonna get stymied and you're gonna get humbled your fair share of times, but you're gonna win your fair share of battles as well. That's what elite guys do. When you go up against an elite tackle, they usually wipe out 95% of the league because they're elite. That's what elite tackles do. They quiet and silence guys that are good to less than stellar. But when you're going up against an elite guy, they're going to win their fair share of battles just like you are as an elite tackle. And I think Chase Young is an elite pass rusher. And so elite that's what we've been missing. That's why I've been trying to tell you guys about the Ryan Kerrigans and the Brian Orakpos of the world. We haven't had an elite guy. Ryan Kerrigan's really good, but elite tackles put him to sleep. When you have an elite rusher, they can't put you completely to sleep. You're going to win your fair share of battles. And that's what I see from Chase Young, is that he's going to, look, he's not going to kill Jason Peters. He's not going to kill Tyron Smith. He's not going to kill Andrew Thomas, but he will win his fair share of battles. And that's all we can ask for. It's all we've ever asked for here in the nation's capital. So I don't think he'll be humbled. I think he'll win his fair share and they'll win their fair share. But at the end of the day, he'll do what he needs to do to make it a fair playing field when we go up against some of these better offensive linemen around the league. Not just in the division, but around the league. Thank you for that super chat, Jordan Like the GOAT. Got another super chat. This one is from DH. Thank you for the super chat, DH. Andrew Thomas had struggled and the whole Giants O-line for the most part in their camp. And that may be the case. And I told you I wasn't the biggest Andrew Thomas fan. I thought there were other guys better than him. I thought the Giants kind of reached a little bit there, but I'm not going to kill them for that pick. He's going to end up being, I think, fine when it's all said and done. All right. And again, this is the mistake that a lot of fans make, and you guys are included in this sometimes, is that you expect too much from these young players right out of the gate. Like, I told you that AGG, who just got injured, a couple of days ago, hasn't practiced since. I made the mistake, and I'm human. I'm guilty of this at times, of taking a guy, because my initial thought was when Harmon was healthy, hey, this is beautiful. We got Steven Sims. We got Terry McLaurin. We got Kelvin Harmon. AGG is an afterthought. He can come along nice and slow, like Usher. I just want to take it nice and slow. I just wanted to take it nice and slow with AGG. And then Harmon got hurt, and I was like, man, we might have to speed up this process a bit. Now that Dontrell Inman's in there, I'm going back to feeling like, hey, maybe we can just take it nice and slow with AGG because he's not ready. That's been apparent. He's not ready yet for the show, and that's okay. He's a rookie. All right, like Antonio Gibson, I think a lot of you getting excited, and you should. He's an exciting player, but he's also a rookie, okay? And with being a rookie comes growing pains. Like I said, everyone doesn't mature at the same rate, and Gibson might come in and tear the league to shreds like Odell Beckham Jr. Shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. Came in his rookie season, missed the first 2-3 games of the season, and still had like 80 grabs for 1,100 yards and 7 to 10 scores or whatever it was. Like, some guys just come in and they just get it right away. But other guys, they need a year or 2 or 3. Look at Jaron Christian. First 2 years, we looked at him, we said, hey, that dude is a bust. We're not getting a starting tackle out of that guy ever. And now look, he may potentially be a starting caliber left tackle. We'll see. He may still stink for all we know. All right? But it took him 3 years for the light bulb to come on. I told you what he said. He came in and he said, man, I don't think I'm going to get to play behind Trent and Morgan Moses. And he didn't prepare like a guy that was going to actually get to play. And then voila, look what happens. Trent goes down. Morgan goes down. He's got to come in. And he's not ready. And he looks bad. And so we start to judge him as such. He's not good. Well, everybody doesn't mature at the same rate. Andrew Thomas may come in here and he may stink initially. And he may have to adjust to the speed of the game. He may have to adjust to the strength of these guys that he's blocking on a snap-in, snap-out basis. And then the light bulb may come on and he might finally start to get it. And he may become a dominant tackle. We'll see. We don't know. We don't know what's going on at the Giants practice. All I know is I'm focusing on us. All right? Because I've said this a long time. You focus on what you can control and you let everything else kind of fall into place and just happen. And, as fans of this team, all we need to be concerned about is what we got going on, what our guys are doing to get better. If they take care of what they have to take care of and they go out and they execute and they feel like they're the more talented team, then they should go out and win the football game. You start worrying about what the opposition has and what they're doing, then you start missing out on the things you could be improving upon. So I'm not worried about the Giants. I don't know what they've got going on at their camp and if they're stinking it up or not. That's nor here nor there for me as far as I'm concerned. I'm worried about this team here getting better day in and day out and guys continuing on the track that we're going on, which is upward mobility. We're trying to go up. And so we need everybody on that same accord, moving in the same direction and improving every day. That's what I'm more concerned about than anything else. But thank you for that super chat. I think that was the last one. And so looking forward to the start of this season. But before that, I'm looking forward to a hell of a week of camp. Should be a lot of interesting tidbits coming out from Rivera and company. Some really interesting interviews. And Antonio Gibson just had a post presser. Deron Payne just had a post presser. Jimmy Moreland just had a post presser yesterday. So got a lot to talk about. And we'll either do that on Thursday when coach players speak, or I may bring it up in conversation during these training camp breakdowns. But nonetheless, so much to get to, and we're running out of time. So things are really getting interesting, and they're really, really heating up. That is to say the least. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Remember, also, I am a Washington football fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. As I mentioned before, merch available. Links are down below. Also, LTN exclusives, the Soul Survivor pool, Winners and Losers League, and also the weekly Pick'em pool, all available on the site, LouieTeeNetwork.net. Go ahead and check that out. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And oh yeah, by the way, make sure you like this video and make sure you share it if at all possible. Many ways to donate to the channel. I appreciate all the super chats today on this impromptu live stream. But again, many ways to donate. Those are down in the description as well, whether it's Patreon, whether it's Cash App, whether it's PayPal. I thank you guys in advance for all that you do for the Louie T Network. Until next time, you guys take care, stay safe, and we will reconvene tomorrow as we'll continue to break down this camp coverage of the Washington football team here on the Louie T Network. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Stay safe and take care.
LouieTeeNetwork.